So this is Florence. She's not only our home, but she is also the boat that we have sailed full circle around the world on, over 50,000 miles. We've had her for over 8 years now, and in that time we've got to know her very well. So by the time we got back to the UK, we had a long list of improvements and changes that we want to make. So we've actually spent the last 8 months completing a major refit.
We launched from the boatyard 1 month ago and sailed round to here, Port Solent Marina, where we've been busy moving our lives back on board and also completing the last of the jobs on the list. Florence is now almost ready to go. There's just a couple of critical items that we're still missing. More on that later, but see if you can spot what's missing as we go through. And after doing that big refit, we thought we'd take this opportunity to give you a boat tour of the new Florence, show you what we've changed and why.
We are Matt and Amy. Having completed our dream of sailing around the world on our own boat, we have spent the winter working flat out to prepare her for the next adventure, doing 99% of the work ourselves.
We've now set ourselves a new challenge: to sail north and to explore higher latitudes. So Florence is an Oyster Heritage 37. She was actually built in 1985, which means that she's nearly 40 years old. And we think she looks pretty good for her age. But one of the major bits of work that we've been doing over the last 8 months, you can't actually see anymore because it's now underneath the water. We scraped back all of the antifoul, we did some major repairs under the water, and I also repainted the boot top line. That is just regular maintenance. The rest of the work that we've done has made a real visible change.
Here on the bow, we've got a shiny new stainless steel spade anchor. It's the same design of anchor as we had before, but we had a galvanized one, which you have to get re-galvanized every now and then. This shiny new stainless one, we won't have to get re-galvanized, so that's an improvement. We've also changed the switches that control the anchor windlass. We've moved over to the Lumars CHSX switches, which are sealed switches, because all the time going around the world, we were constantly having to rebuild these because the water got into them and they corroded. So I'm really looking forward to not having to do that job going forward. Moving back from the anchor switches, we have one of the upgrades that I'm most excited about on board, our new furler for our staysail. Now originally we had a removable wire stay here with a hank-on staysail, and now we're changing over to a furler, so we'll be able to furl this without having to come up onto the foredeck, which means it's going to be a lot safer because we can stay in the safety of the cockpit. And also I think we're actually going to use the staysail a lot more just because it's going to be so much easier to deploy and put away.
So up here on the foredeck is where we keep our nesting dinghy. It's actually a wooden dinghy that was built by my dad, and it's not the ideal place to keep her because she is fairly exposed up here. But she's been with us around the world, and we have a full video on the dinghy if you're more interested in that. But during the refit, she's needed a bit of TLC as well. So she's had some fresh paint and varnish and a new bumper strip. But I guess the most obvious thing, whilst I'm sat here on the deck, is the deck grip itself. So we used to have Treadmaster, which was a cork decking, which was fantastic in terms of grip, but it was starting to peel off and it got to the point where it just totally needed replacing. So we stripped all of that back, and then we've painted the decks with a Kiwi grip deck paint. So the deck grip has obviously made a huge improvement to the way that Florence looks, and we are really happy with that aspect of it. We've actually only tried it so far on the sail around to here, and we were out on the deck and the deck was wet and it was impressively grippy during that time. But yeah, we need to test it in some rougher, more trying sailing conditions before we can truly give a verdict. But so far we are really pleased with it. So the other major project that we completed on the deck is the replacement of our tow rail. Our old tow rail was really damaged and corroded, but it was also leaking. And there are about 160 bolts which attach it all the way along the inside of Florence, inside of all of the cupboards and all of the cabinetry. So it was a really major job to get this off. And I know at the time that I said that we probably shouldn't have started it, but now it's fitted and we have a beautiful shiny tow rail which does not leak. I'm really glad that we've done it. The difficult bit wasn't actually bending this aluminium tow rail onto the boat, it was trying to source the correct one in the first place. So although it's definitely not a job that either of us want to do again, I'm not sure that we would be put off by it if we had a tow rail ready and waiting to refit. Now that we have a beautiful, shiny, non-corroded tow rail, we want to keep it that way. And so we've actually lashed all of the new blocks onto the tow rail rather than using a hard metal shackle.
You might notice two differences here to how Florence has looked for most of our circumnavigation. We did used to have these Dorade vents on when we set off, but unfortunately they're not very secure. So one came off crossing the Atlantic and the other one caught one of the lines in the Panama Canal and pinged off in the Panama Canal. And they were so expensive we didn't replace them until now. Because they're expensive and we don't want to litter the ocean with bits of plastic, these ones now have a line tying them in. But that should help with the ventilation when we go up north and we can't have the hatches open all the time. And then also here, hopefully you'll notice some really shiny new winches. One either side, one for the staysail halyard, one for the spinnaker halyard. Now, we had some problems before where we had a lot of corrosion on the mast plates, which must have been the original ones from when Florence was built, and that was pushing up some of the pins inside the winch and causing some wear. Also, we had quite a lot of wear from the amount we used them on the drums, and they were pretty old, so they had the old style self-tailors. These now have got the nice new sprung self-tailors, which means we can use them with thinner ropes, ideal for the new staysail halyard, which is only 8mm. And Luma are so confident in these winches now that they actually come with a lifetime guarantee.
So back here you can see our new windows. We've actually had all of the windows out on Florence and we've replaced the acrylic because it had been really badly UV damaged. It was incredibly crazed and it actually had a couple of cracks in places. But you'll have to wait until we go down below before you can see the biggest difference. We are really happy that we got around to doing this job. And then we've also fitted a new headsail car for our staysail. And this means that every time we switch between using the Genoa and the staysail, we don't have to rerun the lines. We just permanently can have the staysail sheets or the storm jib sheets, if that's the sail that we're needing, running through here. To go with that new staysail car, we've also fitted a Luma double cheek block back here so that the sheet can run through this.
And at the back here we've made some improvements to our cockpit tent. We designed this and had it made in South Africa, and it transformed ocean sailing for us because it gave us so much more protection from the weather and we just didn't get as tired because we weren't out in the weather all the time. But when we're sailing downwind, we've had a lot of water was coming in the back. So I've had a friend, Mark Flue from Flue Sails, has made us these new brilliant windows to go on the back, which we can just zip off. We've got two separate sides. And that's going to give us not only a lot more protection when we're sailing, but also when we're in marinas or at anchor when we've got wind blowing in through the back. He's also done a brilliant job on stitching up our stack pack for the mainsail, which was really suffering from some UV damage just to the threads, which is normal wear and tear after the amount of time we spent in the tropics. That is going to make a real difference when we are sailing. It's so much warmer and cozier in here out of the wind.
Our cockpit tent used to attach onto our steering pedestal on this handrail, but we've actually changed our steering pedestal and the new handrail is in a different place, so we also needed to change the attachment. But what that did allow is for us to raise up the cockpit tent because we've now tied it to the bimini, and that gives us a ton more visibility at the back here, and it also gives a little bit more headroom, which is really nice. So the reason that we changed our steering pedestal is that the old one was very corroded and a lot of the internal parts were very worn. We'd actually had it apart multiple times and it had got to the point where it just wasn't worth servicing anymore. So luckily Luma sent us a brand new shiny steering pedestal, which on the small test that we've had sailing around is so smooth in comparison to the old one, and also luckily comes with a new throttle lever because our old one was too big and we actually had to have it slightly offset so that we could not get it stuck on the wheel. Also comes with a very nice new teak cockpit table. We're really looking forward to getting some more use out of this cockpit table, which is a massive improvement on our old one, which was not only broken but also permanently stained with fish guts. And another improvement that we've made to not just the cockpit but the general exterior of Florence is her gel coat. She's actually still original gel coat, so it's nearly 40 years old, and we've managed to get away without painting either the top sides or the cockpit. And that's through many gel coat repairs, a lot of sanding back and a lot of work, but I'm really pleased with the result. I think it looks pretty good for nearly 40-year-old gel coat.
Moving on to what we've done to bring Florence bang up to date with modern boats. Florence is an oyster. Oysters are pretty fancy these days. You don't get 37-foot oysters anymore, but what you do get on the big fancy oysters is B&G equipment and also the power system that we've got down below. So we've had a massive upgrade to Florence. Got a new chart plotter, entirely new suite of instruments. This is a much more modern chart plotter with touchscreen. We've got all the C-map charts in there. There's Florence alongside the dock in Port Solent Marina. And then we've got a fancy radar, which we didn't actually have a working radar before, so this is a massive upgrade for us. And then we've also got some other features on here like forward scan sonar, so that we can use when we're coming into unknown anchorages. It tells us if we've got any obstructions in front of us, and we can also see the depth readout here. Now that is a real upgrade to Florence, bringing her bang up to date. Then across here we've got 3 multifunction displays. We've got another one down at the chart table as well, which can display anything on the system. So any of the information that's being fed into the system, we can display whatever we like on here. That's going to be really useful because the old ones really didn't work very well. So this is another massive upgrade. And to power this whole suite of new instruments on board, we've got an entirely new power system below. But before we go through that, I'll show you where the power's coming from up on deck. So up here on top of the bimini is where Florence's powerhouse is. This is where we generate most of the power that we use on board. We've upgraded from 250 watts of solar up to 400 watts. And we're hoping that's going to mean that we don't have to just turn everything off when we run out of power like that we used to. So down here at the chart table we've got another one of those multifunction displays, so we can monitor all of the input from the instruments. We've got the VHF radio, which is also our AIS transponder, and we've also got a remote for the VHF radio that we can take on deck with us. This is going to be great so that when somebody is sleeping down below, we don't have to have the microphone on the main radio down here. It can just be up on deck, which means the person down below won't get woken up by any radio traffic as we're going along. And then we've also got where we can monitor the batteries. So here we can see our batteries are at 79% at the moment, and we can see how much input we've got coming from those solar panels up on deck. A little bit cloudy today, only 15 amps. We have up to 30 amps, I think is about the maximum we can get out of them. And then we've got all the switches to control all of the systems on Florence.
We now have a full Mastervolt lithium battery and charging system on board, just like a high-spec new-build yacht. Check out episode 179 for a full breakdown of our new power system.
We spend quite a lot of time, at least one of us spends quite a lot of time sat here at the chart table, so this is the favourite place for editing on board. So we have a laptop in front of us, we've actually got built-in power supplies for the laptops both here and further forward in the corner, so that when the other person is editing, we're both editing at the same time. One person sits at the table and one person sits here at the chart table. So we spend quite a lot of time sat here, getting up every morning and checking the weather. Looking forward to doing that again now we're not land-bound in a shed. Behind us, the quarter berth, nothing much has changed back here. We still use this as a store. It's insulated on the outside, but we didn't get round to insulating the inside face of the quarter berth. So we might get a bit of a condensation issue back here. We'll have to see as we go north. Back here we've also got our grab bag, which is now a grab tub that we can easily grab if we do have a problem and need to ditch. But just storage of stuff, that's basically our garage. And before we move forward from this area, we've also got the controls for our heater. Not that we need it today, because it's a lovely 23 degrees on board, but this is where we can control the heater when it gets cold. That's all located back in the lazarette at the back of Florence, and then ducted through here on with some insulated ducting that then goes through the whole boat, including up to the forepeak.
So up here in the forepeak is right in the bow of Florence, and this is where we sleep when we're not sailing. But most of the work that we've done in here you can't actually see because it's actually behind the side panels, the headlining, and even this fiberglass coaming around here. We've had all of that down and we have fully insulated behind it, not only to hopefully make it warmer in here, but also to help reduce the condensation. And there's a few other things that we've done to try and particularly reduce condensation when we go to cold places. So the headlining along the sides of the bunk, we've actually changed that for a softer carpet type material. And then underneath the mattress, we've actually added a ventilation mesh, which is supposed to stop condensation. I'm not convinced that it stops condensation. It most definitely helps, but I don't think it's a miracle cure. So if we come out of the forepeak, I can show you the saloon, which we haven't shown you since we're in the boatyard. And as you can see, it looks very different to the tool-strewn, dust-strewn area that it was all of the time that we're in the yard. It's felt really nice to get some cushions and some pictures back up in here, and it's feeling a lot more like home. So again, the major thing that we've done in here is the insulation. So we've had all of the cupboard backs out and the headlining panels down, and we've insulated as well as we can in the space that's available. I've even wrapped our metal mast in some insulation in the hope that that stops any condensation and stops it also being a cold plate. As you can see, we still need to get around to doing the same on our chain plates. We had these off and we've checked the bolts, but we just need to insulate those once we get around to it. But they're no longer water damaged. All of this area, when we bought Florence, the veneer was damaged, and we've fixed all of that and painted them up. Here in the saloon you can really see the difference that our new windows make. They are so much clearer to look out of. And whilst we had the windows out, we felt it was worthwhile fixing the window surrounds because we'd had them out in the past, and in the process we had damaged the surrounds themselves. So they were all cracked, and the paint was so ingrained with mould for being in the tropics for so long that it was really in need of a refresh. So that is all now nice and clean and fresh. And taking off the curtain rails, which were really difficult to clean, we decided that we didn't actually want to put those back on. So I've made up some blinds which we are attaching into the windows with suckers, so they act as a shade and also give us some privacy, just like a curtain. And we're going to try those and see how we get on with them. I'm also in the process of making some thermal blinds to keep in the heat and also prevent condensation. And I'm making these just out of some close-cell foam or yoga mat, and I was hoping that they would just stick and stay into the windows, but they don't, so they're more of a work in progress. As well as being thermal blinds, these are also hopefully going to be great blackout blinds for the 24-hour daylight that we'll get as we head further north. Whilst I borrowed the sewing machine to make the shade blinds, I also made up some cushions which double up as storage for all of our winter sailing gear. And it turns out that down jackets make excellent cushion inners. So comfy.
Over the winter we took Florence's floorboards out and Amy sanded them back and re-varnished them. And beneath the floorboard here is where we actually had help from our friend Ron, who did a really proper repair on the crack we had in the bulkhead. That's the one we found when we were in the Caribbean. He put a temporary repair on there and was determined that he would fix it properly once we got back to the UK. So that is now all, hopefully, bulletproof. Behind the steps here we have Florence's engine, which was new when we bought her 8 years ago and now has 1,300 hours on it. We haven't had to do much to the engine other than the normal full service, replace all the filters and the impeller. We cleaned up some corrosion on the back of the engine, but the only thing we've done as a real upgrade is that we've changed from a V-belt to a serpentine belt here. And that's because we're now going to be charging those lithium batteries, so we're going to be running the alternator a little bit harder, and we used to get a lot of wear on the belt, so putting a serpentine belt on here should fix the wear problem, but it also, the size of the pulleys has changed, so we run the alternator slightly faster, which should get us a bit more power when we're running at lower revs. Thanks to the new power system on board, we've also got something in the galley which we've never had on board before. That is an electric kettle. Now this is a low wattage one because we've chosen to fit a 1600 watt inverter rather than anything bigger, but we can run this and we drink a lot of tea and coffee on board, so hopefully this is going to reduce the amount of gas that we need. But we don't have enough solar panels to run an electric oven, and we don't have a generator or either to run that. So we are sticking with the normal gas oven, but this isn't the gas oven that we had before. This is a new one because our old one was so rusty that it was dangerous. So we've got a shiny new stainless steel oven as well.
So that concludes all of the major changes and upgrades that we've done to Florence. But if you watched our video right at the start of the refit, you're probably aware of that huge long list that we had and how crazy we were to try and think that we would get that done all in one winter. So what are the things that we have left off the list?
Well, mainly cosmetic things. We have focused on the fundamental things to get us sailing again, but the varnish, the interior varnish really needs redoing on Florence. It's quite tired, we just haven't had time. We wanted to replace the countertops in the galley, but we haven't had time for that one. We also still have the original table sat here in front of us in the saloon, which neither of us like because it's kind of awkward and takes up a lot of space. We'd really like a better solution for that, but again, just didn't have time to fit that in. And we also didn't replace the toilet pipes in the heads, so hopefully that won't cause a problem when we go sailing again.
Yeah, moving on. All of that is really just things that we feel can wait until next winter. The summer is already here and we really are ready to go sailing. So hopefully we've done all of the essential things that we need to get done, and we'll crack on with the other projects once we've had a full season of sailing.
So now it's time to go sailing, apart from we can't, because of those two critical items that we haven't got that we mentioned at the start. I don't know if any of you noticed what they were as we went through the boat tour. We'll go and show you those now. So yes, the two missing pieces of the puzzle are our head sails. Now they are on their way from Rolitaska Sail Loft in Thailand. They've actually already arrived in the UK and we should have them in the next couple of days. And once we've got those, we'll be able to set off and go sailing again. So the next video will come from somewhere out on the water. Now, when we got to the start of this refit, the videos were actually a long way behind real time. The videos right now are pretty much bang up to date. We are filming this right at the end of May, and we're going to be hopefully setting off right at the start of June to go sailing again, and I think this video will go out sometime in June once we've edited it. So yeah, you're up to date. Next video, sailing.
After watching that video back through to edit it, we realised that that boat tour video and probably the entire refit series don't paint a realistic picture of the last 8 months of our lives. They make the refit look easy, and we know that a lot of people take inspiration from our videos, so we don't want to be misleading or to set unrealistic expectations.
The reality is we set ourselves way too big a challenge in the time available.
Yeah.
Our vision for the winter was to spend 5 days working on the boat and then 2 days out seeing family and friends that we haven't seen for the last 7 years. But as soon as we got a couple of months into the refit, we realised that if we were to have any chance at all of getting out on the water this summer, we just had to pretty much drop everything and work as many hours as possible on the boat. So we were getting up early, working 7 days a week on Florence, and then we come home. The only reason we could work that hard all week was because my parents were looking after us and had a hot meal on the table when we came in the door each evening, and then we'd disappear upstairs and get on the laptops, ordering parts, arranging things, and editing.
Yeah, and please don't take this as a complaint, because it in no way is. We definitely do this to ourselves, and we have a tendency to do it with every single project that we've ever taken on together. And there is a part of us that does realise that that is the only way that we've ever set off and then continued to set off and keep sailing around the world, but it is definitely not a healthy way to live, and it's not a way that we would wish any of our friends to live. So yeah, we just wanted to give a bit of a reality check to all of these nice shiny things that we've put onto Florence. It's not necessarily been as healthy as it looks.
So our advice to anybody who is using these videos in the refit series as inspiration for their own projects, we would say keep it simple, do only what you need to do to get back out there and enjoy sailing.
Yeah.
Do that as quickly as you can and then actually get back out and enjoy sailing, which is what we hope to do in the next video.
Definitely.
For extra updates in between these bi-weekly videos, and to find out what we're up to in real time, head over to Patreon and join the crew. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to make sure that you don't miss the next episode here on YouTube.
Continuing our voyage on Florence would not be possible without the support of our patrons. Thank you to all of you, and especially to our star patrons.